Thank you very much indeed. So I'm here as an alternate. I'm replacing Chris Wood, so please give me a very easy ride. Just a little bit about Barclays. You may think I'm here to just talk about card issuing, but we are a significant acquirer of cards, credit and debit cards. We're big in debit and credit cards, not just in the UK, but also across several continental European countries. We're also the #1 credit card issuer in Germany, for example. Before I go into any detail, I'm just looking at the slide. Before I go into any detail, I'll just make 3 quick points to set the scene. The first one is that the current model has been extremely successful. Barclaycard was set up in 1966, and that's less than 50 years old, but now cards are the main way that people make retail payments, and they've successfully replaced cheques, which was a very inefficient way of buying things. But they also facilitate what I call simple payment. So they enable cardholders to pay for products around the world and for merchants to sell products to consumers around the world. Very simple, very easy, very secure. Let's not forget that that's what the card payments model that we've got today lets us do. And let's also make the third point that someone has to pay for this and the alternatives aren't free. Think about the cost of cash. So quickly, what is needed? 3 things: certainty, flexibility, and balance. So the certainty point, I think, is self-evident. We've had this issue to deal with ever since I started in government relations. I'm thinking 2000 when the OFT in the UK issued a Rule 14 notice. Some people may remember that. I read it. That's what got me involved in government relations. Thank you very much, OFT. But the other 2 points around balance and flexibility. So I've just put down here, this isn't an exhaustive list of the benefits of card payments to consumers and to merchants. And you could read retailers, cardholders. Don't get too fixed on that list, but all the benefits are of mutual benefit to both of those parties. And there's another beneficiary of this system as well, which is society more broadly. So let me just pull one of those examples out, which is fraud management. There's a real cost of fraud, a real cost to consumers. There's a cost in terms of if they end up paying for it, which generally speaking with cards they don't. There's a guarantee to consumers that they don't pay the cost of fraud. There's also a guarantee to merchants a lot of the time around fraud guarantee. If they pick up a card and take a transaction, again, they're not liable. So we pay, the banks pay, generally speaking, when things go wrong. We pick up the tab, but more importantly, society picks up the tab because people are disadvantaged. They may be scared if their identity is stolen. There's a big cost to a lot of different stakeholders of fraud. So it's in all our interest to work together, and the beneficiaries are mutual: society, the consumer, and the merchant. So what regulation needs to do is balance all of this. We've heard that word balance before, but we need to balance the benefits and balance the costs. We all have to pay, but we have to take account of the benefit to society of getting this right. Have we got that balance right today? Well, I think if you look at what's going on in Save Fraud, things are under control. Fraud is being successfully managed. Fraud initiatives are generally paid for. The card schemes and the industry get together and resolve issues. So the question, I think, is are we in balance? If we're not in balance, what's the right balance? Now, I haven't got any statistics to say whether the proposals from the Commission do give us the right balance or not. I haven't really seen a great deal of evidence to say that the current system is out of balance. But I think before we change anything, we need to make sure that we ask that question, that we get the right evidence to support our answer, before we make the wrong decision. That if you unbalance this, if you put this out of kilter, that could have disadvantages for society, consumers, and retailers. So my third point is flexibility. So the need for a flexible approach. Now, a number of people on the previous panel have talked about, and earlier on, have talked about the changes in the market, a new ecosystem we heard. And that's what we talk about at work. We talk about the new ecosystem. We spend most of our time thinking strategically about that new ecosystem and how to respond to it. E-commerce, we've talked about M-commerce, wallets, new ways to pay, new entrants. From a Barclays perspective, many of you may have heard of Barclays Ping It, which enables people to make person-to-person payments using a mobile phone number. That system now enables merchants, some merchants, to put a QR code in front of the customer, that's a 3D barcode, in front of a customer so they can make a payment using that system. You've heard about other innovations in the UK market which compete with Ping It. So innovation is happening and it's very, very real. You've heard, I think, about contactless. In Barclays, we talk a lot about wearables. A number of you will have been at a conference we held back in June where we talked about wristbands for access and payment at festivals. We announced, we've been talking to the HM government, HM Treasury in the UK about check imaging technology to speed up what seems to be at the moment a paper-based system and to turn it into a quasi-electronic system which would speed up clearing cycles and enable a customer who receives a cheque to pay that in using smartphone technology. So there are a lot of things going on, and that's just 3 or 4 examples from a purely Barclays perspective. But people still want simplicity. They still want it to work. Fundamentally, the consumer wants to know that whatever it is, whether it's a wearable, whether it's a card or a mobile phone, it just needs to work. It needs to be simple. The proposition needs to be simple. And for that reason, we support the draft amendments that the rapporteur has made around honour all cards and co-badging, because we don't want to make the point-of-sale experience particularly confusing for customers. We also support limitations on surcharging because we think surcharging can be confusing to customers as well. E&M commerce moving in store, we saw a very good slide that showed that. We use the term omni-channel. Others will have heard that as well. The blurring of distinctions between different payment forms. And if you accept that different payment forms are blurring and that faster payments, separate direct debit, card schemes are just rails, why would you regulate one type of payment and not others? Why would you pick winners and losers? You just have to be careful as things are changing not to make the wrong decision that disadvantages one type of payment against another. But let's also look into the future. I've got up here new capabilities, new demands. The customer wants us to invest to do different things. And we need to make sure that we do have the ability to invest in the future, to tackle cybercrime, to look at what the next fraudster has come up with so that we're preventing it, and recognising that the consumer today is a global consumer. They don't just want to buy things down their local high street. They want to be able to go onto the internet and compete and see the various different competitive offers across the worldwide spectrum. And so we need to ensure that we're able to continue to invest in payments. And whatever regulations we come up with can't deter that investment. We have to be careful that PSD2 and interchange regulation don't make it difficult for us to invest. So I'm going to conclude. Obviously, there's time for questions later. No doubt you have plenty. But 3 requirements from us: certainty, flexibility, and balance. The payments market is changing rapidly. And let's make sure that whatever regulation we get can be adapted and is adaptable to the changes in the market. Doing something that actually fixes a problem of the past but doesn't look into the future may not be the best thing to enable us and others to respond to changing consumer demands and technological innovation. And finally, this isn't about retailers and card issuers. This is in the interest of everybody to get right. The payment sector, retailers, consumers, we have a shared interest in getting this right, because an efficient payments infrastructure, as we've heard from a number of people already, is something that can be significantly beneficial to society and to the single market. That's it from me. Thank you very much.